Well, greetings everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Vagal Toning Secrets for Mind-Body Healing, a new pathway to achieve emotional health and recover from trauma, anxiety, and chronic illness. My name is Stephen Dunn. I'm the founder and CEO of the Shift Network, and I'm really delighted to be with you because there's so much interest and fascinating research that's emerging around the vagus nerve and how we can work with this. There's a multidimensional nerve system in our body to really regulate our whole system for maximum health and well-being. We're going to get to explore this with a remarkable teacher. Her name is Arielle Schwartz. She has a doctorate. She's a clinical psychologist, author, consultant, and therapist trainer, and she's taught a program for Shift to great feedback as well. So Arielle, thank you so much for returning to share more about vagal toning today.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm happy to be here again.
Great. Well, I want to let everyone know we're going to have this hour and we're going to get some practices as well from Arielle, but we'll also have a chance to go much deeper in a brand new program all about vagal toning to embody your vibrant and spiritual self. So more to come on that towards the end of the hour. So Arielle, let's start our time together with a little bit of why you got into this particular area. I mean, you obviously have a lot of different influences and backgrounds. So what really drew you on a personal level to explore vagal toning?
Yeah. I initially discovered the benefits of vagal toning through my background with yoga and somatic psychology. But when I was first introduced to those fields, I didn't know that the vagus nerve existed. It wasn't something that I understood why I was getting the benefits of those practices. But especially in my late teens and my early 20s, I experienced a significant amount of anxiety and health challenges. And as a result of that, I was really suffering. And when I first started engaging very actively in my own yoga practice, even though I had been introduced to it as a young child, I dropped it. When I returned to those practices, when I would be moving and on the yoga mat and breathing, my symptoms would leave. I would feel this tremendous relief. I would feel it after the practice. And so I got very curious. Why is this working? And so I devoted my career to really studying, why does yoga work? Why are somatic practices and embodiment practices bringing us relief from mental health symptoms and physical symptoms of chronic illness? And clearly I'm not alone, right? The use of mind-body therapies as complementary care to traditional medicine or psychotherapy has been steadily growing for about the last 40 years. So in wanting to learn more and wanting to devote my studies to why these practices work, I've been, exploring this since about the 1990s. It's initially what brought me to where I live here in Boulder, Colorado, to Naropa University, initially to study somatic psychology or body-centered psychotherapy. And then it was in the early 2000s that I first came across the understanding of the vagus nerve and also a related concept called the polyvagal theory. And once I heard more about that, I felt like I had really landed on a clue to the why. So in more recent years, I have really been focusing on that connection. We'll talk more as we go through the program today about what the vagus nerve is and why gentle stimulation of this nerve helps to reduce anxiety, depression, symptoms of PTSD, or inflammation connected to health conditions or digestive imbalances. So for me, this is what I'm teaching here are my daily practices and what I have been teaching to thousands of others. So it has just been profound to receive the feedback, not only from my own body and mind, but also from others that have been engaging in these practices with me. And I look forward to sharing them with you.
It's a great background and really exciting stuff. So why don't you share a little bit about the vagus nerve? So for folks who are less up on it, like why has that really become such a centerpiece for a lot of different healing modalities?
Yeah. So the word vagus is wandering in Latin, and the vagus nerve is one of our 10 cranial nerves. It's the 10th cranial nerve. And unlike other cranial nerves that are just connecting from the brainstem, maybe to the ear or to the mouth or around the eyes, this is the only cranial nerve that connects all the way down through your body. It's considered to be a super highway of communication between your brain and your body. And it's a central part of your autonomic nervous system. Your autonomic nervous system is what we think of as your stress response system. It allows you to key up into fight or flight if you're under threat, or to go into rest and relaxation and digest and so forth. And we'll also, kind of explore sometimes that the vagus nerve also has a threat response, that when we're exposed to very high stress, unremitting, chronic experiences, the vagus nerve takes us even into a shutdown response, which is like a collapse or a faint response in the body. So the vagus nerve is connecting between your belly and your heart and lungs, your larynx and pharynx in your throat, and all of the small muscles around your face. And it helps your nervous system assess the degree of threat that's around you, whether that's in your environment or your relationships or what you've been exposed to on the news. And the truth is that our bodies are responding to those cues of threat without us even realizing it, right? It's quite an unconscious process. So what we want to do is kind of key into what is the state of my nervous system? Am I keyed up? Am I shut down? Or am I in balance? And if we are out of balance in one direction or another, we can actually work with toning the vagus nerve or stimulating the vagus nerve in very gentle ways that helps us actually recreate a state of ease or connection or safety in the here and now. Doesn't stop the fact that there will still be threats in our outer environment. That's the nature of being human, but we can carve out or create very mindful times of practice where we get to go into restoration, and we need that so badly in our modern world.
So I'm still a little bit unclear what toning actually means. So vagal toning, like how do you actually tone the vagus nerve?
Yeah, it's a great question. So vagal tone is actually a measurable scientific term, and it refers to the capacity for your autonomic nervous system, as regulated by your vagus nerve, to be in balance. So a lack of tone in the vagus nerve means that we might be kind of overly keyed up, overly in that go, go, go mode, that stress mode, or the sympathetic nervous system. So when we tone the vagus nerve, usually what we're doing is we're bringing ourselves back to balance. Balance from the perspective of the nervous system means that, of course, we're going to go into some sympathetic nervous system as part of being human, but that we can come back to parasympathetic. And so it means that we have what we kind of feel like is this wave or this quality of I can move between mobilization and back to immobilization or rest. And we measure vagal tone through the science of heart rate variability. And so we have ways to kind of scientifically track, am I in optimal vagal tone? And how does my body-mind give me feedback about that state of being? I feel more easeful, more peaceful inside, more able to respond to what's necessary in my environment and come back to a sense of ease. So that vagal tone is typically measured is in relationship to your heartbeat and your breath. So practices like conscious breathing are a way to enhance vagal tone, but there's some other practices as well, which I'll speak to.
Great. Well, do you want to dive into some of those practices?
Sure. We'll get into practicing them together a little bit here as we continue. But before then, I think what I'd like to say about it is that because your vagus nerve travels close to the surface of your body in certain areas, particularly around your throat and around your face and your ears, we have certain ways of facilitating what we call natural vagus nerve stimulation or neuromodulation. That's a fancy term of saying we have our nervous system, and modulation means change. So we're changing the state of the nervous system. We're naturally stimulating the vagus nerve in order to facilitate that change. So where the vagus nerve comes close to the surface, for example, would be around your eyes, around your ears, around your jaw, in your throat. So little practices like humming or self-applied touch, self-applied massage to the face. And also, because your vagus nerve travels around your heart and lungs, when we are expanding and contracting in these areas, we are gently creating that stimulation through movement. Your vagus nerve also travels right through your diaphragm and then innervates into all of your digestive organs. So once again, movement can help us go into a contraction around the diaphragm and an expansion around the diaphragm. And all of that is creating this gentle massage from the inside out. We're exploring, and we'll get there in terms of the practice, we're exploring embodiment and what I refer to throughout my work, what I refer to as a form of embodied spirituality, because there's something else that I think is important about the vagus nerve as we're moving towards this, is that it's not just wire, right? It's not just a nerve pathway. This nerve pathway is actually so deeply connected to your sense of well-being, to accessing a place of compassion and creativity and a deeper connection with yourself that facilitates a deeper connection to the world around us. So, I think that I want to name this before we go into the practices, because I don't want it to just be this journey of science. It's actually an intersection of science and soma, your body, and soul, so that you actually get to tap into your deepest instinctual, intuitive wisdom through the practices. That's the goal. Sometimes I use this metaphor, Stephen, about the playing the violin, right? We can study the violin. We can study the tension of the strings, the bridge on the instrument, the cavity that creates the resonance of sound. But in reality, the violin is meant to create music, and it's the music that moves us. You are the violin. We are that beautiful instrument. And so when we're going towards creating vagal tone, it's about waking up that deepest spiritual knowing. It's about connecting to your soul at that level. So, I want you to kind of take a moment to recognize that even intentionality is an essential part of these practices.
That's really beautifully described. So it's really central. The vagus nerve has a really important role to play in embodying our spirituality, it sounds like.
Yeah. One other piece that I think is interesting to reflect upon in this is that when you look at the location of the vagus nerve, we have these nervous system plexes, or these collections of where a lot of nerves come together. There's the cardiac plexus around the heart. There's the celiac plexus around your diaphragm. We have a sacral plexus around the sacrum. We have one in the throat, the pharyngeal plexus. These are also locations in the body where we have the endocrine system glands, and of course our nervous system and endocrine system work really closely together. Spiritually, these are also the places where the chakras in the body reside. So it actually gives us a deeper scientific understanding of what has been kind of, long written about as the chakras and our energy systems. So we get a little bit of, oh, that's what's going on there. And that's why this can feel contracted or sometimes quite expanded. And that I can feel a little bit more in control of my own energy system when I work with the vagus nerve.
How do you work with the vagus nerve when there's like deeper traumas or things that are really more difficult to work with? I'd love for you to just give a little sense for how you can kind of like titrate your way into things.
Yeah, that's a beautiful word, titrate. And maybe I'll just kind of lean into that for a moment, because in some ways embedded in your question is the answer. So titration is a term that lets us know that we can kind of go towards something and then come back out. We can attend to our suffering or our pain or our distress without letting it define us, by allowing ourselves to go into those areas of contraction as they might be held in the body, but then also be able to retune our awareness back to cues that let us know that we're safe enough now. And titration is a term from chemistry, right? We take a little bit of an acid and a little bit of a base. And if you take a whole lot of each, you get that science experiment of the volcano or the little rocket going up in the air. You get a big reaction. If you take a dropper full of the vinegar and you put it on the baking soda, it will bubble up and fizzle down. Your attention is the vinegar, the somatic experience, the base, right? The baking soda. And so when you bring attention to just a little bit of discomfort, something begins to change just naturally by bringing your very own awareness, which is powerful, to the discomfort. So we can go towards a bit of contraction and into the expansion once again. If we only focus on where the pain is, you ask in your question about trauma, which is my area of specialty. I've been a trauma treatment expert for 20 years. If we only put the lens on the trauma, it becomes all that we can see. So a resilience-informed approach to trauma recovery, which vagal toning really fits right into, allows us to expand the lens into the resources that we have, into where we already have a sense of connection, compassion, creativity, clarity, where we tap into a sense of ease, even if it's something as simple as, I really like the color of this scarf that I wore today, or I like that piece of art on the wall, or it's so lovely to connect with the plants in my space. So we can find little cues that let your nervous system go, oh, it's okay right now. One of the biggest cues of safety that we can find is with each other, right? We need relationships to heal, especially when trauma has been experienced as a source of relational betrayal, or it's left us feeling isolated. We need safe relational spaces. It's what I love about teaching with the Shift Network, is that the experience of community that forms through these courses is extraordinary. And I think that that's, what makes this, again, kind of that richer container that we can do the exercises. But when those exercises are held within a sense of community and a feeling of belonging, that's where the magic happens.
That's really interesting. So in a way, it sounds like that working with the vagus nerve is almost like internalizing your own sense of safe container, is like you're kind of taking that internally so you can work with the things that are more challenging.
Exactly. We talk a lot in this work about co-regulation and how that precedes self-regulation. In very simple terms, we regulate each other, we influence each other. And when one person is bringing a sense of calm, ease, safety, compassion, that is palpable. We feel that from each other. And the more that we've internalized those experiences, then the more likely that we are able to do that for ourselves in the quiet moments, in your own meditation or your own yoga practice, right? It's easier to sit with yourself when we've had that foundation of really knowing how much we deserve that, how worthy you are of that felt experience of connection and safety.
Well, beautiful foundation. Do you want to talk a little bit about breath work and how to integrate some of our breath and movement into your work with the vagus nerve?
Yeah. There are many different kinds of breath work that are out there. Sometimes we feel perhaps even a little confused about which kind of breath work shall I do, because we can get taught about how to do nose-nose breathing or, kind of mouth-mouth breathing and Wim Hof breathing. And, there's a lot of different styles. My perspective as a yoga teacher and someone who's studied and practiced pranayama or yogic breath work for many years is that there are different types of breathing that we want to employ in different situations. Our breath is so deeply tied into the state of our nervous system, right? Think about a time when you felt afraid, right? We go into that maybe upper chest or rapid breathing response. And when we feel calm and relaxed, we're more likely to soften the belly, to soften the diaphragm, or engage in what we call diaphragmatic breathing. And we slow down the exhalation, and that helps us go back into that rest and digest and calming response. So when we work with the breath, We can start with getting to know, what is the state of my nervous system? Am I feeling keyed up in anxiety, shut down, or depressed or collapsed? How can I use my breath to re-regulate myself? Every inhalation brings in a little bit of that sympathetic nervous system. Every exhalation will key into a little bit of your parasympathetic. Remember, mobilization, active system, resting system. And we can explore nuances of all of that, but that's its most simple framework to think about. And so when we're working with the breath, if you're feeling keyed up, you want to emphasize your exhale. If you're feeling shut down, you might want to emphasize your inhalation. And we can play with the breath. I think that play is such a key word when it comes to all of this work, is that we don't want to take it too seriously or ourselves too seriously, even with trauma recovery, right? Again, like deep respect, my own journey of trauma recovery and having supported countless others through their journeys. Even there, we deserve to have levity and playfulness and a sense of, it's okay now. It's okay. Like, the body is not going to release the impact of stress or let us go into a breath practice until we feel safe enough now. And play is a window into that.
Beautiful. I'd love for you. You have this beautiful term also that I want to explore a little bit around poetic soul baths, and maybe share a little bit about how that becomes like one way to integrate these different threads around breath, movement, and vagal toning.
Yeah. So when I'm teaching, I almost always bring in poetry, music, or art. I use my photography that is drawn from my love of nature in all of my teachings, because I believe that art connects us to something that's larger than us, to that ephemeral. It lets us dance with the unknown. And creativity lets us play with the elements of the universe, the elements of our lives. In yoga, we have this term that we call spanda. I've actually been speaking about it all along here. Spanda refers to the expansion and the contraction that lives in all forms of nature. We see it in the plants and the flowers that unfurl to the sun and curl back in at the end of the day. We see that spanda in the waves of the ocean. We see it in the universe itself in its expanding and contracting nature. And that lives inside of every cell of your body, inside of the entirety of you. So the soul bath is about connecting to that embodied spirituality, or that sense of soul, that sense of that maybe it's not always the part of the brain that is knowing or seeking intelligence or seeking answers that can answer our deepest inquiries about what does it mean to be human. Those are the places where we really need to let go and let something new arise. It's our relationship to the unknown that allows us to discover something new. We need that newness. Otherwise, our brains are kind of wired to recycle the old material again and again. We will rely upon the old story, even if it's a trauma story, to keep us safe. Novelty feels a little scary at first, but it's also where our healing resides. And art is a way to play in the space of novelty that lets us experience something from the heart. It lets us tap into a sense of beauty. Stephen, I would love to share a poem here. This is a Rumi poem, and it's quite apropos to what we're talking about. This poem is called Bird Wings. Your grief for what you've lost lifts a mirror up to where you are bravely working. Expecting the worst, you look, and instead, here's the joyful face you've been waiting to see. Your hand opens and closes, opens and closes. And if it were always a fist or always stretched open, you would be paralyzed. Your deepest presence is in every small contracting and expanding, the two as beautifully balanced and coordinated as bird wings.
What a beautiful poem.
Yeah.
So how would you then work with that, sort of like basking in that? Then how would you sort of, add the other layers of practice to it?
To me, it's this reminder that you too can embody this practice. You too can learn to take flight. And we do so in some ways by learning how to embrace or turn towards those areas of contraction, the difficulties, the shame, the grief, the fear, without letting them define you. And what we know about the human experience is that our bodies love congruence. They love when we are feeling what is true, what is accurate. There's something just like the way that you would turn towards a child. And if the child is sad, and if we ignore their sadness and we just tell them to be happy, they feel missed. So if we think of the body as the inner child, in a sense, when we turn toward the way that our body is expressing in what is true, and we acknowledge that sadness, we acknowledge even the despair, right? But that also opens us up to, oh, I feel seen. I feel understood. I feel less alone. And that's our goal. And as we feel seen and less alone and understood, we begin to have more access to ease or compassion or peace, even a sense of joy or awe. And again, we can go into that expansion. It doesn't mean we'll always live here either, right? Because the human life will bring us another contraction and we will follow those waves. But we learn to get more comfortable, right? It's like learning to surf. We get more comfortable surfing those waves, less afraid of life itself. When I'm working with people who've experienced trauma, so often our lives get smaller, right? The playing field that we're living on gets very restricted because I'm afraid if I leave my house or if I go to that event or if I return home to see family or whatever the thing is, that I'll get triggered, that it will open up all of those painful feelings again. So what we do when we practice on the mat is we practice learning to tolerate some discomfort, some stress, even the elevated heart rate, if a practice is more vigorous. We practice that for the sake of life, right? So that on the mat, we have these controlled environments. And then we go out into the world, and that's where the rubber meets the road, right? That's where all that practice of how did I handle that hard feeling and track that it was temporary and know that I was okay. And now if I walk out into the world and it's a beautiful day and nothing bad happens, hallelujah. And if it's a hard day, I know I can handle it.
So beautifully shared. I wonder if you want to lead us in a practice collectively and a little demonstration of what you're talking about.
It would be a tremendous pleasure to do so. So this will be a short practice. And like I said, these are the kinds of practices that I do every day. I'm going to slide myself back just a little bit so that you can see more of my body in the camera. And this is a practice that can be done anywhere of your choosing. There will be a small invitation to turn towards just a little bit of discomfort, and you can opt in or opt out of that. It can be done seated. You might choose to do this laying down or on a yoga mat or standing up. As with all practices, I invite you to start with an intention. Intention is profoundly powerful. It sets the stage. It plants a seed. So taking a moment to notice what you are bringing with you into this practice, maybe thoughts or feelings that got stirred by the discussion or events of your life that are happening now or events from the past. How are those experiences shaping what you're sensing right now in your body, any emotions that are present for you, the kinds of thoughts you're having? And I invite you to turn towards whatever is true for you and just open the door. Say, this is here for me now and it's welcome here. The intention that I am bringing into our shared time together is to embrace that quality of contraction and expansion, knowing that neither is permanent. Both are necessary. Both help you take flight. The next part of this practice is an invitation to take a look around your space. This might be connecting through your screen to me, or this might be looking around your physical space, finding something, anything that you identify as a source of connection for you, a source of beauty, a place of calm, knowing that you are safe enough right here, right now. And if at any point during this or any practice you feel stirred up inside, you can always reorient your eyes, your attention back to those cues that let you know that you're safe enough now. Beautiful. The next part of this practice is to bring your palms together and just very gently rub them back and forth, enough to create a little bit of warmth in your palms. You might even connect to your breath here. You can even give your breath a sound or a sigh. Good. And then taking your palms and bringing them over your very own face. You can sweep your hands across your forehead from the center of your eyebrows out towards your temples. You might even circle your fingertips one way or the other, and a few more sweeping movements like this. Self-applied touch in this form is a powerful way to connect to yourself, that vagal toning we've been speaking about. Knowing that the vagus nerve is close to the surface in these areas of contact. I'll invite you to bring your fingertips now across your cheekbones from the bridge of your nose outward. And again, a few sweeping movements. Your eyes get to be open or closed. And ideally, what we're going for is anything that feels good to you. Right? We want this to feel pleasurable. You get to have that. You can allow your hands to greet your jaw in front of your ears, a little self-massage, and it's up to you how much pressure or depth you want with your fingertips. You can also explore taking one finger in front of your ear and the other behind, and just massaging around your ears. You can do that on both sides. Again, you might feel inspired to take a sigh or give a sound. All right, if you've ever received a scalp massage, that can feel really good as well. It's okay to mess up your hair a little bit, right? Let yourself experience that touch. Right? You can find those places that are calling to you, saying, oh, it's right here. Just like when you're petting an animal and they kind of lean into your hands so that you get just the right spot. Find that just right spot for yourself. You can also find the base of your neck or the base of your skull at the top of your neck. Right? And you can wiggle around in there a little bit. And going towards what feels good, you might rotate your shoulders one direction and the other, softening through the tight muscles that we can kind of all build up between the shoulders and the ears. The shoulders can creep up there, and you might just roll shoulders forward, back, and down, giving a little more space. Maybe letting your head figure eight just a little bit, opening up through the base of your skull and your neck muscles. We're continuing our journey kind of downward, tracing the vagus nerve. You can gently stroke the front of your throat, your neck here, and just acknowledging how vagus nerve is going to travel through the two sides of your neck. And again, letting a sound go. You can draw your chin in, a little contraction. right around your throat, and then lift it back. You don't have to go too high up, just feeling the space. And again, feeling that contraction in and that gentle expansion as you lift your chin back up. We're going to find a variation of that contraction and expansion in a breath we call Robin's breath. And this one, the hands can come to shoulders. The inhale is the expansion shape. We open the elbows wide, maybe a slight lift of your chin. The exhale, tucking your chin, and elbows can come together in front of your chest. And then continuing with your breath, your rhythm. And once again, you can add sound or a sigh. We're going for what feels good, finding your range of motion. And with all of these movements, you might pause and find a little spot that goes, oh, that's it, that's right there. So we embrace the contraction. We go toward it just enough to acknowledge what's there. And then we go back into the expansion pattern. Now we're going to turn our Robin's breath here into bird wings, drawing your fingers forward, hands forward, palms to touch. And then the expansion pattern is to open your arms wide. Again, lifting through your chest, maybe your chin, and finding your rhythm, your range of motion. And again. One more like that. And then pausing for a moment. We're not quite done with our practice yet. We'll have just a little more. But before we go on, take a pause and notice even any subtle changes in response to the practice thus far. You might notice a subtle shift in the temperature of your body. You might notice a change in that emotional tone that you're experiencing. You might feel a little bit of a quality of ease creep in. But there's no right or wrong response to these practices, and that's very important. What we're doing is we're turning towards what is true for you, and that's enough. There's nothing aggressive. You're not trying to make anything happen. Yeah. Our next practice is to turn towards where the vagus nerve travels through your diaphragm. This is a common place in many bodies where we carry tension. And our contraction pattern is actually to exhale and draw your diaphragm back towards your spine just a little bit. The inhale pattern is to find a deep belly breath, really expand, get your Buddha belly going here. You can let your hands mirror the action if you'd like. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And as you keep breathing, I'll just speak one more layer here. On the exhale pattern, the diaphragm contracts and it draws upward. On the inhale pattern, your diaphragm expands and it lowers downward. And again, seeing if you might even mimic that with your hands, just feeling your way into this contraction. It's going to decrease the space around heart, lungs, and expansion. Sending increased blood flow into the heart in that expansion pattern. One more time, contract, and expand. And then soften your hands, this time palm over your palm, right over your navel. And as we move downward towards where the vagus nerve travels deep into your digestive organs, we settle for a moment in a pause. Reflective, restorative, and receptive state. Knowing that very often the deepest change that any of us experience happens in those pauses of stillness where we get to really sense that new emerging voice of you. You get to sense that deepest connection to your instinctual self that doesn't speak in words or even images sometimes, but very often speaks to us in the language of sensation. The pause offers you an opportunity to listen to what is your truth now. And keeping one hand on your belly, one hand to your heart, and sensing inward that connection, belly to heart, instinctual nature to your source of compassion and love. Keeping your hand on your heart, bringing your lower hand to the base of your skull and sensing the connection between your heart and your brainstem. This is the part of your brain that regulates the autonomic nervous system, that keeps you in balance, helps you restore into balance when you've lost it. And sensing that there's a pathway, maybe even one filled with light, connecting your heart, that source of love and appreciation, care, and gratitude. Just trusting that that creates something. We might not always sense it or feel it, but trust. Keeping your hand on your brainstem, bringing your hand from heart to the frontal lobes of your brain, and sensing once again the connection between your two hands, base of skull, and over your forehead, as if there was a little channel of light transmitting between your two hands, and knowing that we can come out of the survival states, that worries about the past or the future, and we can really resource the most recently evolved portion of your brain, that which helps you explore creatively, find new solutions, experience a sense of clarity. And then releasing your hands and softening for a moment as you settle into stillness. Check back in with the intention you set. Maybe you joined me in that intention to trust the contraction and expansion, the way that that helps you take flight. With deep gratitude, I'll close this practice, really honoring that light within you from that source of light within me.
Wow, well, what a delicious healing balm that was. There's something just about the way you speak and move and guide us in the body. It's just like so soothing and really nourishing. It really speaks to that healing container you said that this working with this way with the body can really create for whatever needs to unravel in our systems.
Thank you, Stephen. I know for me that I come out of a practice like that feeling rather blissed out. So that's what you're getting from me right now. And I think that's the quality of the poetic soul bath, is that to me, when I'm guiding those practices, it does feel like, in a way, a spoken word poem in itself.
Well, it's so juicy and deep. And I want to spend a little more time talking about how people can go deeper with you, because it's really clear that you have such deep mastery in this area and such a beautiful way of teaching as well. So people who are feeling called to go further, they're going to be in for a real treat if they choose to join you in your upcoming program. So let's share a little bit about that. The program is called Vagal Toning to Embody Your Vibrant and Spiritual Self. Heal long-held trauma, anxiety, and chronic illness for meaningful life change. You can find the program laid out in detail at vagaltoninghealing.com, vagaltoninghealing.com. It's going to be an 8-week program. There's no prerequisites. So if you just feel like your system recognizes there's a depth of beauty, unwinding of trauma, or healing potential that can really nourish you, you're warmly welcome to join. And so, Arielle, I'd love for you to share in your own words really about the outcome of taking this journey. How do people's lives shift when they really integrate these practices into their daily life? And then I'll read out the module titles and you can give a preview of what's coming in each.
Yeah, beautiful. So, I mentioned earlier that these, and we just got a little small tasting today of some of the practices. I actually, across the whole course, share a total of about 30 practices with you that form the basis of my daily practices. But the key about vagal toning is that it's not a one and done kind of thing. It's more like brushing your teeth or any kind of self-care. It's something that we need to do repeatedly. And the biggest challenge that most people find is that they know what they want to do in order to feel better, but that it's hard to motivate or it's hard to get yourself to do it. So for me, having an 8-week period of time where I get to meet with you every week, we're going to do practices together. I'm going to encourage you to do them every day in between. But because it's just a week, even if you just do it 3-4 times, each time you are wiring resilience into your nervous system. That's where the benefits really grow, so that by the end of 8 weeks of time, that's actually the equivalent of about, 40 days, if I'm going to do my math right here. It's something really profound where we are actually laying down the pathways again and again and again. Like if you were learning a piece of music, the first time it's a little clunky. By the end of 8 weeks, you're playing it smoothly. You don't even need to look at the notes. So that's my hope.
That's great.
Module 1, foster your own well-being through soothing self-awareness grounded in nervous system science and spirituality.
We're going to dive kind of deeply into the science of the autonomic nervous system and understanding the vagus nerve, understanding it in relationship to trauma and chronic health. And then we're going to start to learn some of those practices. As I mentioned already, we get to practice them together so that you have a beautiful felt experience right from the first week.
Module 2, improve your health by stimulating the vagus nerve naturally.
We're going to learn more about what is neuromodulation. We're going to explore that intersection that we spoke about here today of where science and soma, body and soul meet, and why vagal toning is not necessarily hacking away at your nervous system, but it's a very gentle stimulation. It's a very gentle soothing of your nervous system so that each time we go into these practices, we come out feeling kind of blissed out.
Module 3, reduce stress and learn to relax using mindful breathing to regulate your heart.
Here we're going to speak about the science of heart rate variability. We will have a whole module just focused on the breath work and conscious breathing and learning a whole range of different breath practices so that you can fine tune during the week. This is the breath practice I need when I'm feeling this way, or this one really helps when I'm feeling that way. And you get to choose from a menu of about 8 different types of breath practices based on your nervous system. So you learn to upregulate and downregulate. It's a powerful sense of control and feeling like you're in the driver's seat of your life.
Module 4, explore empathy, compassion, and your vagus nerve to cultivate deep personal connection.
I think there's so much out there right now about the science of self-compassion, the supportive ways that we really understand how we co-regulate with each other and really regulate ourselves inside so that we become that source of nourishment or benefit for the world that, of course, the world so deeply needs right now.
Module 5, enhance your body's resilience with a postural reset for vagal efficiency.
We know now in studying somatic psychology or body-centered psychotherapy that our posture is very connected to our mindset and our emotional tone. So, for example, if we're sitting kind of slumped, it's hard to feel joyful. And if we're rigid in our posture, we can feel inflexible, right? Even emotionally or cognitively. So in this particular module, we look at the relationship between postural imbalances. For example, our classic forward head position where we are restricting some of the blood flow in the vagus nerve because we get into tech neck and we've been on the screen for too long. So we practice learning how to reset your posture. And then trust me, you're going to feel something new emerge. It's quite stunning.
Module 6, access your inner healer, eye movements for increased mind-body-soul integration.
I began studying the role of eye movements in healing trauma when I first learned EMDR back in 2001, which is now 22 years ago. And there's the experience of what happens when we are moving our eyes from side to side and how that actually facilitates neurochemistry of change. We'll explore more deeply what that means, the neurochemistry of courage and how it helps us to face a challenge, but to know that we have the resources to do that now.
Module 7, embrace movement to fine-tune your nervous system, unveiling the power of therapeutic yoga and mindful mobilization.
In today's practice, you got a tiny little taste of that. And, I get this question a lot when I'm teaching these movement practices, how accessible is this for everybody? And my intention for this practice, for this course, is to really keep everything very accessible. I will show modifications of everything, but what we'll play with together is really sensing how finding some guided movements, and I'll teach you some of my favorite movement practices that create a sense of ease. We'll look at the connection between the fascia and the connective tissue and how they transmit neurochemicals all throughout your body, the good ones too, oxytocin and serotonin and dopamine, so that we feel more uplifted.
Fascinating. Module 8 is called Embrace Rest and Restoration Through the Power of Stillness.
At the end of today's practice, I invited you to find that pause, that settling into stillness. And I suggested that that may be the place where our deepest change happens. And there's a whole lot of research about that actually suggests that the mobilization practices are preparation for meditation, for yoga nidra, even for a deep, fulfilling night's sleep. So we will kind of look at that classically understood that asana and yoga is a preparation for meditation. We'll look at some of the science of that. And of course, we'll have opportunity to experience that together.
Well, what a beautiful offering and beautiful program. And I know just drawing from so much research and practice, and people are really going to just be in such good hands and emerge so much more calm, centered, and able to soothe and heal trauma and really have a much more balanced approach to life. So again, you can see the whole program laid out at vagaltoninghealing.com, vagaltoninghealing.com. So you get not only the 8 live modules with Arielle, which is going to include time to practice together, ask your questions, also engage in live community with others. You're also going to get recordings, video and audio. If you can't make those live sessions, you can keep coming back to those, as well as word-for-word transcripts. There's some small group time to connect with other participants. There's a Facebook community to deepen your sense of real global community around this work. It really is a rich and deep way to explore together. And on the page, you'll see a number of extra bonuses that enhance your journey as well. There's an audio teaching from Arielle called the Trauma Recovery Audio Program Sample. There's also daily grounding practices. You want to share anything about the daily grounding practices, Arielle?
Yeah. So what I did is I created some kind of guided audio meditations for you that are helping to come out of states of being keyed up in stress or feeling threatened or a trauma response. And so there's 4 that I've put together for you that are very practical, and you'll hear the soothing sound of my voice anytime at your fingertips.
And that's just one bonus that enhances your journey. And there's another special bonus that you get when you sign up by midnight, which is our way to encourage you to really tune in and get a clear sense if this is the right next step for you. Then if you sign up today, you get a special bonus for moving forward. And that's a PDF from Arielle. It's called Applied Vagal Theory in Yoga, Practices for Balance and Equanimity. You want to share more about that, Arielle?
Yeah, gladly. I've been writing about this, and in addition to being a yoga teacher and a clinical psychologist, I'm also an author. I've written 7 books on the topic of applied polyvagal theory and trauma recovery and embodiment. And so you will get a really beautiful, supportive set of chapters that are going to support your journey along the way. So it's going to be a way to read the science of what we're speaking about and practicing in the course together. And I think it's so valuable to have multiple ways of gathering information. There's an auditory program, there's, of course, our learning together, and then there's the visual reading opportunity, so that no matter whether you're a visual learner, a reader, an auditory learner, you'll have a way to really understand this material.
Well, that's a great extra reason to sign up today. So again, more detail on that is on the page at vagaltoninghealing.com. And a few other things about this program. We've kept the investment really accessible. It's just 3 payments of $146. You save 10%, you pay in full with one payment of $397. The courses are going to be Tuesdays at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts, and the community as well. And it's really about taking these practices and making them your own, because that's where the real flourishing and benefit happens, when you really embody the practices. On the page, you'll also see a lot of great testimonials from working with Arielle. She's a master teacher bringing state-of-the-art knowledge, now have tools to bring my nervous system into balance, so many insights gained and profound sense of being held, a gold mine of tools for healing. A lot of rave reviews for Arielle's teaching work at Shift and elsewhere, and you're really going to be in great hands and get to savor the benefits from all the decades of work she's done in this area. So again, you can find all the details at vagaltoninghealing.com, vagaltoninghealing.com, and you get that special PDF, Applied Polyvagal Theory in Yoga, Practices for Balance and Equanimity, when you sign up by midnight tonight. So Arielle, it's just so grounding, relaxing, opening, and beautiful to be with you. You're just have a wonderful presence in addition to such deep knowledge. Anything you still want to share with folks who are considering going deeper into the program with you?
Yeah, I think I just want to speak from my heart for a moment to say that, I feel like I was gifted with opportunities with my teachers to learn these practices. And for me, this is part of paying it forward, a way to share so that more of us get to benefit. And at the deepest spiritual heart, I feel that this is what our world needs more of. I know that when I do these practices for myself, I am more able to respond lovingly and calmly to people around me, even when they're experiencing stress or distress. And so it becomes a generative force. And I really, truly believe that we all get to exponentially pay this forward. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I really hope that we get to spend more time together.
Well, thank you, Arielle, and thank you all for joining. And if you'd like to go further with Arielle, you're welcome to do so with Vagal Toning to Embody Your Vibrant and Spiritual Self program. And you can find it at vagaltoninghealing.com, and you get the special PDF when you sign up by midnight tonight. So thank you all. Many blessings, and thank you, Arielle.
Thank you.